Tribe members. So just wanted to do a quick video as a recap from last week's retrospective. We had a great retrospective session on Friday. I was originally going to post the recap of the videos that we did for the retrospective, but I've realized over the last 2 weeks we've had some really good conversations where people have gone down into the depths of their actual business and their actual problems. So to preserve anonymity, what I'm going to do moving forward is take a video that just recaps on some of the insights that we got out of the retrospective, so those who couldn't attend can get the most from it. So last week we scene sets on too much change, not enough direction was our topic for the week. This was the highest voted topic on the poll that I put up earlier in the week last week. So a couple of the things that are working well in this space is there is a lot of scene setting for innovation happening. So the post-COVID or the COVID era, as we want to call it, there is a lot of innovation happening, and that's innovation in the sense that things are changing. There is a lot of gap analysis for the communications. So a couple of the people on the retrospective are seeing that leadership and senior leadership are picking up on the gaps in communications, and they're scene setting for how to fix that. There's a lot of new ways of working tools coming in. So, as you can see on the screen here, I'm using Miro. This was an example that a couple of people on the call called out as a great tool. There's a lot more other tools we were talking about as well. There appears there is enough people on board to make change. So as we are seeing a lot of change coming through as part of the COVID era, there's a lot more people on board than potentially before COVID to drive through decent change. And organizations with the non-financial motivations are easier to propose change. Actually, I think that's a bit of a typo. So this one was referring to our reflection as a group, saying where an organization that has got individuals that are not motivated by financial drivers, i.e. non-sales people, are a lot easier to get to motivate to do change, where they're motivated by doing the right thing as opposed to making money. We're seeing that now and in the past as well. And also a couple of new people on the call, new to organizations, saying that it's easier to adapt to change and accept the change. So what's not working in the realm of too much change and not enough direction? So right now we're saying that the how of using the new tools, so new tools are coming in, but because there's new tools for how we do our jobs and how we work and how we fulfill our duties, there's not too much in the way of rules or processes or an understanding or a shared understanding of how to use those tools. So there's a lot of ambiguity in that space. Not everyone's on board with a lot of the change that's coming along in the current working world. That's causing problems. People with a long company history are passive to change. Now, we spent a lot of time on this concept of passive individuals, which I'll come back to in a moment. Busy people are not on board. They want to keep going. So we're also finding there's a bit of a trend amongst the busy people that don't necessarily want to get on board and change the ways we're working. And that is because they're busy. They have things to do and they can't stop doing those things. So they find it difficult to find the time to concentrate on change. Sales and financially motivated players are passive unless they can see direct financial gains. So this is again around those individuals. We kind of narrowed down to saying that the people that are financially motivated tend to be less easy to influence or be influenced by change initiatives. And that's because they need to see direct financial gains. We're seeing a lot of the change right now is difficult to quantify because it's all very new. The business world especially, has changed a lot, so it's very hard to try and quantify what's the effects of a change going to be, other than to say it just has to be done. So each individual needs to be sold on the benefits, and that's hard work. So we had a couple of change makers on the call, and they were saying that it's very hard work for them to sell the benefits of the change, and they spend most of the time trying to sell it rather than actually doing the change, and that becomes a problem. And we've seen, so going back to the concept of passivists, there's a lot of individuals in organizations that are saying things along the lines of, I've been on this roller coaster before. And that's where they've seen previous change that didn't live up to the vision, and they're pacifists, but they have influence. So we spent a lot of time on this conversation now around they're being advocates for change, they're being pacifists for change, and they're being detractors. Now, the advocates for change are great to recruit into helping you drive out an organizational change. Detractors, the ones you know are detractors, are actually great because you know who they are, and if you know who they are and what they're doing, you can mitigate that those negative or those detracting actions that they take. But the pacifists, even though they might be doing nothing negative towards a change, what they're actually doing is not enabling the change either. So we had quite a lengthy discussion that there seems to be a lot of pacifists for change in what we're seeing in the change in organisations at the moment. So where we landed with was 6 actions that we can personally take as leaders to try and help enable a bit more change, knowing what we know about the individuals that we spoke about, the organisations that we spoke about. So we want to ask each person what they think the change will, what will change for them as a result of the change that we're pushing through. So, making sure that we're involving each and every person and asking them what their personal opinion is. Asking each person what you can do to make the change for them. So whatever change that they want, ask those people that you've asked before what they think the change is. Ask if there's anything you can personally do to help them get towards their part of the vision of it. If you convert a pacifist to an advocate, ask them to buddy with another pacifist. So this is a bit of spending time with individuals and thinking about if you see a pacifist and you identify them and you can convert them to an advocate for the change by going through the first 2 questions before, asking them to be aware that they were potentially a pacifist before this, and then asking them to seek out and find another pacifist and convert them. So that's sort of broadening your influence. Getting stakeholder feedback. So we want to look at the unidentifiable feedback loops. So we were talking about getting feedback. It's very difficult on change, asking for direct feedback when it is identifiable. So thinking as a leader, thinking about getting unidentifiable feedback loops. And this is things like Net Promoter Score system. So a scale of 1 to 10, how did you enjoy an action, or how did you enjoy a piece of change, or what was your response to this? And seeking out that response both from a quantifiable and a qualitative, so asking for surveys and feedbacks. So making sure that if we're spearheading a piece of change in an organisation, that we're actually trying to get that unidentifiable feedback. Seeking out and getting to know the change pacifists. So as leaders, we need to empathise with the pacifists. So finding out why are they a pacifist? Don't just assume that it's they've been on that roller coaster before, but finding why they are not an advocate for the change, and because in that empathy is the insight that will make the change a success. And then working with other advocates to build the definition of a passive. So this is about finding, not just taking on the responsibility for seeking out the pacifists, but working with other advocates within your sort of change committee to find out, what is the definition of a pacifist, to make sure that they don't sit on the sidelines, working out what's a sign that somebody's not really into the change, and then helping, off the back of that definition, make some better actions 2,